Welcome to our podcast where we look for opportunities in our lives to see a beautiful view. I'm Candy.
And I'm Paul. We look forward to sharing with you today, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the beautiful view.
We could climb a mighty mountain, float on down a winding river, travel back in time and face our future too. Oh, I'm not scared of where I'm going, 'cause I know whose hands I'm holding. Oh, I'd go anywhere as long as you're going to. Well, I'd go anywhere as long as I'm with you.
Well, it's warmed up a little bit this week.
It has, yes.
Our snow is mostly melted off.
It's almost all gone.
Yep.
The sun is shining.
It is.
It's a balmy 39 degrees today.
It's amazing how warm that actually feels.
Yeah, when compared with like zero. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
It's kind of crazy. Yeah, a lot of the ice, most of the ice is melted on the river, at least south of the dam.
Yep.
Yeah. Unfortunately, with that means that I haven't seen as many bald eagles around. I think they may have gone a little further north, most of them. But
Yeah.
who knows? I don't know if we'll continue to have more cold weather or if this is kind of, I don't know. The groundhog said it was going to be an early spring.
Yeah, I'm not going to go for that. I'm going to keep the snow shovels out and not put them away because we might need them. Also, the other negative is that our dogs come in covered in mud.
Yeah, that's that. With all the melting snow, that definitely means mud as well.
Yes.
So
yeah,
there's that. Yeah. So it's been a busy couple of weeks.
It has.
Tyler had a bunch of snow days, a couple of weeks ago, and they've been making up all the basketball games that got canceled. And it's been basketball game after basketball game after basketball game. But we had something kind of fun happen last Saturday.
We did.
Tyler scored his very first points in a game, and it was a three-pointer.
A three-pointer.
Oh
Everybody like jumped up.
I might have lost my mind for a minute. It was really exciting.
And his coach Tim looked across at us, all proud, and we were proud.
Honestly, I didn't even notice that. I was in my own little world of celebration. So
it was wonderful.
It was very exciting.
I was so happy for him.
Yeah.
That happened, and it was cool.
It was fun.
Yeah, and then last episode, we decided to point the cameras at us.
Yeah.
And actually do a video as well as doing the audio of the podcast. So I felt like that went okay.
I think it did too. I think I was like, I definitely wanted to stage things a little better for this time if we were going to be doing this.
Yeah, so now we have green stuff, some foliage.
Yeah,
and,
so it just I feel like our table looks a little more put together and you're not in the coat closet. So anyway, we're going to give this another shot and see what happens. But since we're on YouTube now.
Yeah, we're on YouTube Music, which... YouTube Music is very much connected with YouTube itself. And so if you just put audio out there, then all it does is put a thumbnail up and so if you find our podcast through YouTube, then there's nothing to watch. It's just like staring at the thumbnail.
That's boring.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to watch a video. So
you suggested that we would film so that we could have some clips to use during the lead up to the episode to kind of
as little teasers for social media was my thought. So.
Yeah, and then I'm like, well, yeah, but we're recording the whole thing, so why not put the whole thing out there?
Yeah. So we'll give it another shot, and I think we had some really good feedback on that. So we'll give it another go. So,
yes.
Okay. So in today's episode, we are going to be talking about answering the call.
Yes, we are.
So we all have callings in life. If you're a Christian who's seeking to follow Jesus every day, you already have found your most important calling.
Yes.
We also have secondary callings, though. That is work that fits your gifts and brings a deep sense of purpose and significance to your life. Whether you're called to be a teacher, a nurse, a coach, a stay-at-home mom, a caregiver, a farmer, anything really. Every single one of them is important.
Yes. We all have unique gifts, experiences, abilities, and interests that equip us to answer our individual callings in life. Today, we're going to be talking a little about our calling. how it came to be, and how to find and pursue your own calling in life.
We hope today's episode will encourage you to consider what your calling might be and how to pursue it. I know I've been fighting with the content of this episode for several weeks now.
Yes, you have.
Which that probably means that someone listening is going to need to hear something that's in it.
Yes.
So here goes. First of all, let's start with talking about what a calling is. The definition of a calling is a strong inner impulse toward a particular course of action, especially when accompanied by conviction of divine influence. What does that mean? Well, I think we've all been wired with the desire to find purpose in our lives.
Yes.
We want to make a difference in the world. I think that's especially true when you add spiritual convictions. What would you say a calling is? Is there anything you would add to that description?
Well, I think that calling has a lot to do with our identity. I think it's about discovering who we are and how we live into our identity. And then it's about how we live out our identity among our core group of friends and in the community. And I'm like naturally kind of a self-conscious, sensitive, withdrawn type. Now, there's some strengths and weaknesses to that, obviously.
Of course.
And I would say that when I'm at my best and I'm at my most integrated, I can be very objective and principled. And I think that that is helpful to others because in a time of need, I can provide guidance and stability.
Sure.
So when our friends or when someone in the community is going through a storm in life, I think I can step into that and actually be a good help. So
Yeah, so I think so too. So what would you say, how does that point to what your individual calling would be?
Well, I think very early on, I felt the calling was to be a pastor, and everything I've just talked about describes a pastor, right?
Yeah.
And that is very defined in our culture and in our society. I thought that meant to go to Bible college and then to seek a vocational position as a full-time minister once I had the qualifications. But then standing up in front of people and delivering God's word for the week or engaging in conversation before or after a church service, which I've had plenty of opportunities to do, that stretches me to the limit. Like it can prevent me from being useful to someone because I'm just like at the end of who I am. Like
Right.
I have nothing left.
So when did you say that you originally felt that call on your life to be a pastor?
Well,
You said early on. What does that mean?
So I was in my early 20s, and for me, it was coming to faith in Christ. So I realized that all the things I was trying to fix about me as a person with my behavior was getting me nowhere.
Yeah.
And so I had come to a knowledge of Christ and accepted the fact that he had died for me, and there was no fixing to be done other than to accept that. So that was very early on in my 20s.
Yeah. So do you feel like your calling has changed over the years since then?
Yeah, it has. So like there's that sort of definition of who a pastor is, and that's very, very defined, and I didn't fit that. I mean, I did go to Bible college, and I did finally get my undergraduate degree later on in life. And of course, at that point, then the next stage is to go on to do a master's degree. And then at that point, you have the qualification to be a pastor. So educationally, I mean, I obviously learned a lot doing an undergraduate degree. But that didn't exactly meet the mark. And then there was like the actual vocational side of things where I feel like I don't meet that. Like it's not a natural fit for me as a person. So of course, that calling to be a pastor has had to change. So when we first hit the road together as a family, I felt that my calling to be a pastor was more in the role of being a father and a husband.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't do a good job of that all the time, but that was a calling for me to live out that role in my family. And then as time has gone on, I feel the calling of being a pastor is more about the interactions that we have with our friends in the community. How about you? What would you say that your calling is, and when did you feel that call?
Well, I would say that my primary calling includes being an encourager and lifter up of people.
Yes, you are that.
But also while always striving to live a life of faith that ministers to others. Mm-hmm. That covers a very broad spectrum of things. I realize that. Mm-hmm. And I first felt that call. It was at youth camp the summer before my senior year in high school.
Mm-hmm. Early on as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I started, after that summer, I started my senior year with purpose and a lot of new confidence that I found. And I got involved in a lot of leadership roles in my high school at that point. There was a Christian group called Youth for Christ program. I was very involved in that, student council, and numerous other things. I think I was involved in everything.
You were busy. You were very busy.
I was very busy that year. But I knew that I was supposed to have some kind of a long-term role in ministry. But back then, I didn't really know what that would look like.
Right.
But I knew I was called to a life of ministering.
Back then, it was called an MRS degree,
yes,
right?
Yeah. Back then, if you were a girl in the Baptist church, you went to Bible college to marry a pastor. That's how that worked.
Yeah. So after high school, you ended up becoming a hairstylist.
I did.
Went to beauty college and trained to be a hairstylist. Mm-hmm. And so could you talk to me a little bit about how that fits your calling?
I did. So I went to cosmetology school right after high school. I got licensed and I went to work. And my stylist chair was a little bit of kind of a mission field for me.
Yes.
It's amazing what people share with you when they sit in a chair to get their hair done.
I'm sure.
Some of them I probably could have lived my life without knowing, honestly. But it also gave me the opportunity to exercise my primary calling, doing what I absolutely love doing. Mm-hmm. I can't tell you how many people I walked through big life things with: marriage, divorce, grief, cancer diagnosis.
Yeah.
It was truly a perfect fit for me. The perfect combination of using my gifts and talents and hairstyling skills, while also providing a platform to minister, encourage, and uplift my clients.
So it was a creative outlet as well.
It was, absolutely.
I think the overall thing that made the two of us a perfect match for each other is that we both felt a calling to minister to people. Mm-hmm. And that's something that we've always shared. And we've learned that we are much more effective when we do ministering together.
Yes.
And this podcast is a good example of that.
Absolutely.
As is the Bible study that we co-lead on Sunday evenings.
Absolutely. Let's talk about that for a minute. We both had a similar calling to minister to people, but I think it took us a while to figure out what that looked like for each of us, and then also as a couple.
Yes.
As you said before, we definitely do better when we do things together.
Yep.
Also, I think a lot of people hear that word minister and they think a vocational position, like a priest or a pastor or a minister.
Very official.
Yes. But I don't think that's exactly what we're talking about, is it?
No.
What exactly does it mean? We're talking about minister as an action verb. It's something we do. It's not just a title for us.
Well, according to the dictionary definition, to minister means to help or care for someone or something. We minister to others by caring, helping, being a friend, and meeting needs. When we minister to others, we encourage them, we lift up their spirits, we pray for them, and often meet very practical needs.
Yeah. We spent over a decade of our marriage in vocational ministry, and we're not going to dive too deeply into that today.
No.
But if you want to know more about that piece of our story, I wrote a blog back in 2019 that talks about all of that. It's on ourmovinghouse.com, and it's called Why We Quit Church. We'll include the link in our show notes if you're curious about the backstory, but that's not going to be our focus today.
Yeah, no, it's not. Here's the thing. As we mentioned earlier, if you are a believer, your primary calling is to be in a personal relationship with God through faith in Jesus Christ. The Bible tells us in 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 9, that God has called us into fellowship with his Son. Now, if you aren't a Christian, please hang in with us.
Hang in there.
There's valuable information in here for you too.
I know in my young adult life, I used to pore over God's will for my life. Who would I marry? Where would I live? Did I make the right career choice?
Yeah.
All of those kinds of things. It wasn't until I completely set aside my own plans and the doors I was trying to force open that I had space to fall deeply and madly in love with my Savior.
Yes.
That was a turning point for me because I was no longer searching out my calling on my own. I was in step with what God wanted me to do. I recognized his leading and I followed where he led.
Our primary calling is not necessarily tied to our employment. Obviously, we can honor God in our job and our work, but God values us for who we are, not for what work we can produce or achieve. Our work or vocational calling is a secondary calling.
Yeah.
A vocational calling is an opportunity to use our gifts in the real world, whether it be within paid employment, in the home, or volunteer activities. For me, my giftings are in the creative field. And so I have always loved to use technology to create new things, right? From like way back in the day when I used to dub recordings across from one cassette to another. and kids out there, a cassette is like a way that you sort of store music in a little plastic rectangle and play it back. And you have to fast forward and rewind
And
to
you have to
find
make
the
sure
right
you have
place.
a pencil on hand just in case it all
it all ravels up inside the machine. So I started off in the very early days doing that kind of thing, and I really do love to use my creative abilities to produce things that actually help an organization or a business to communicate what they do.
Yeah.
And so, and in the home, I like to cook, and I do love to sit down and listen and have conversations. So all of those things help there. And then, of course, like in our volunteer activities, just being able to be like able to lift a box out to a car or something very simple. That's what I like to be, hands and feet.
Yeah,
So,
agreed. When we left vocational ministry, we had to reimagine what our callings look like. For so long, our primary and secondary callings were kind of tied up together, which at times was complicated to say the least.
Yes.
It was time for a shift in our priorities. So that's exactly what we did. We took some time. We poured into each other, into our kids. We did a lot of soul searching, reading scripture, reconnecting, and healing in those first few years. We basically went back to square one, concentrating on our primary calling, refocusing our hearts and minds on Jesus and allowing him space to direct our paths again.
Our calling was bigger than our occupations. Our calling transcended the temporary things in our lives. With each passing year, we grew stronger in a lot of areas. Mental health, physical health, relationships, and faith. And we began to step into what we felt like God was calling us to as we walked by faith every day.
We did. I even had those words embroidered on the heel straps of my chacos.
Yes, you did.
Every morning when I put them on my feet, I was reminded to walk by faith.
Yes.
So for me during that time, I was able to focus on my family, and I also felt a calling to lead and teach through the entire Bible. That was a huge undertaking and commitment.
Yes,
but
it was.
when God calls you to it, he also equips you for the task. Sometimes stepping out in faith is the hardest part.
Yes, we got to a point where we started looking for opportunities for God to use us in small ways to encourage someone we met at the campground. Or to share our experiences and faith in a blog form. We fellowship with friends, both new and old, over some hot dogs and s'mores around a campfire. It was all things that we could do in a very manageable way for where we were at that time.
Yeah, special things happen around campfires.
Yes,
I love
they do.
campfires. We felt a strong calling to share our faith, to be a light to whomever God placed along our path,
Yes.
wherever he led us. That looked different in different places. We came across many different people who were coming from many different places. Some were believers, and we were able to very quickly connect with those people on a very deep level and offer encouragement to each other.
Yes.
And just kind of lift each other up. But many of the people we came across in our travels had a very negative view of Christians.
Yeah.
Either because of something that they had experienced in their past or something a Christian said or did to them.
Yeah.
God had given us a very interesting in with some of these people because we had RVing in common. But it really hurt my heart sometimes to hear some of these stories and see just how ugly some people can be in the name of Jesus.
Yeah.
It's really frustrating.
It is.
One thing was for sure, our calling called us to be different than that. I could tell story after story of meeting people along our journeys who, because we were at the right place at the right time, and we made ourselves available, that we were able to love on and minister and pray with and just encourage them on their journey. It was very eye-opening to what we definitely wanted our ministry to look like.
Yes.
And it was also very eye-opening to what we wanted to avoid going forward as we explored how we were supposed to answer this calling that we felt upon our lives.
Yes. It felt good to approach people with love, respect, and acceptance first. Our eyes were open to the needs around us, the diversity of people we came into contact with, and the differences in opinions and the things we learned from our shared stories. But we found that we often had more in common with people than we first thought.
Yeah. At one of the full-time families rallies that we attended, they did this really fun kind of adult mingle thing.
Yeah.
And I think you were working that day, but I went to it. And they playfully called it speed dating, which I thought was kind of funny and sounded kind of weird. But it was basically you had a set amount of time. They paired you up with somebody that you wouldn't probably normally maybe mingle with.
Right.
And you had a set amount of time. And for that time, you had to carry on a conversation with this other person. So, and doing that, I met the first dad that I was kind of chatting with. He had left a successful career in filmmaking. And he had left because he was tired of not ever seeing his family. So coincidentally, that was our story too.
Yes.
Although we had come from a ministry background. But nonetheless, we were able to relate to each other's story and kind of, talk about that. So it was really interesting. And then I met another dad. They had only just transitioned to the RV lifestyle, and they were still trying to figure out the remote working thing. And he said their family had been very involved in their home church, and they were struggling with trying to figure out the going to church thing on the road in their nomadic lifestyle. Yeah. So I shared with him our philosophy of instead of always seeking ways to go to church, that we seek to be the church.
Yes.
To be the hands and feet of Jesus wherever he has us.
Yes.
And I think by the end of that conversation, he was really encouraged and even kind of got a little bit excited about the direction of that conversation. So I learned that day that regardless of the background that people come from, whether they come from, a secular job or a ministry position or whatever, we often have similar stories. And the thing is everyone was trying to figure out, they were searching for ways to use their callings within their circumstances in a very practical way.
Yeah. Finding that we share similar stories with other people is just one way to connect. When we started coming to Bellevue, Iowa, and staying at a seasonal RV site during the summer months, we began looking for ways to serve in the community that we are living in for that period of time. By this point, our calling was clear. We were to intentionally be a light wherever God led us on our nomadic journey and to pour into people that he placed along our path.
Our calling definitely includes serving people. Mark 10:45 says, "For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others and to give his life as a ransom for many." Going forward, we have had a very out-of-the-box approach to what we feel like God has called us to do.
Yeah, and I love it.
Yeah, I do too. Both in ministering to those around us and fulfilling our calling. We've been very careful to keep a healthy balance and to focus our attention on loving God and loving others.
In Matthew 22, verses 35 through 39, we read about an interaction between the religious leaders of that time and Jesus. One of them, one of the religious leaders, an expert in the law, tested him, Jesus, with this question. "Teacher, "Which is the greatest commandment in the law?" Jesus replied, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself." It's simple, isn't it? Love God, love our neighbor. The only thing to do in this highly prioritized answer from Jesus was to love, not attend, not persuade, not perform, nothing about self-improvement, education, qualification, position, nothing about any of the things we seem to need our flawed, imperfect leaders to fulfill today. Everybody can love. It doesn't need a seminary or college degree, a sign on the door, or a job description.
That's
Just
true.
love.
Just love. So let's circle back around. How does this apply to our listeners? What is our takeaway today? Well, our story is definitely our own, and your story is your own.
Yes.
We are responsible for answering the call God has given us, and you're responsible for seeking your calling.
Yep.
The thing is, no one can tell you what your calling is. A calling is a very personal way that God directs each of our paths.
Yes. And we're not interested anymore in fitting in a box. We're past that stage. We're interested in answering the call God has placed on our hearts and lives.
Yes.
We are interested in spreading love, hope, joy, and encouragement.
Yes.
We are interested in sharing the love of Jesus to those around us, and we are interested in being a light within our circle of influence. That is our calling.
Yes. And you too have a calling. You might not have your own podcast or blog, but you have a unique story with your own circumstances, wisdom, and insight that only you have experienced. Each of these things helps to shape us into the person we are supposed to be. Even the hard things that we've experienced in life, those things open our eyes. They build our compassion toward others. And they give us more of an understanding heart to love more deeply. You have your own circle of influence. What is God calling you to do? Are you answering your call?
We would like to encourage you today to consider your own calling. The book of Hebrews chapter 12 has been called the Hall of Faith. It's a fun read because it points out many familiar Bible characters and records those who have finished their journey on earth, completing the work for which God created them. They each discovered and lived out their calling. What would be said of you when you leave this life?
Maybe you're listening to this episode and you're intrigued by the conversation, but maybe you're not a Christ follower. So you're trying to figure out how this all applies to you. We always have a faith aspect to our episodes, but I know this one has been especially heavy.
Yes, it has.
It is our heart to not belittle, judge, or exclude you in any way, but to gently offer loving guidance if you would like to know more about how you can have a relationship with Jesus Christ. It would be wrong of us to not offer after such a huge conversation.
Yes.
Please reach out to us either on our social media accounts or email us at beautifulviewpod@gmail.com if you would like more information. We would be over the moon to talk to you further.
Yes, we would. Oftentimes, answering the call comes with a challenge. Sometimes these callings stretch us and call us out of our comfort zone. I know that's true for me. I am the most at ease when I'm at home or out RVing with the family in a new place away from everything. It can be really uncomfortable for me to walk into a busy place with a bunch of other people and just join in with the party. Now, I do love a good time, and I'm usually happy once I've made the effort to be there, but it doesn't come naturally to me.
Yeah.
What is one area where you've had to get outside of your comfort zone?
You know, some days you just get up and you're just not feeling it. I know everybody has those days, but there are some days where I feel like I really have to push through that.
Yes.
I'm a little bit of a homebody. I kind of tend to be that way. So, and I think this works both ways. So some days I have to be at work.
Yep.
I have to put my best foot forward,
Yes,
and I
you
have
do.
to put a smile on my face. And some days, it's just hard to feel that. So once I'm out there,
Yes.
I tend to just ease right in. I don't usually have any issue.
No, you don't. You come back to me sometimes and you tell me about this conversation that you've had with someone that like just stepped off of a barge down at the river there that's coming for a drink. And you're like, hearing all the sea tales of the.
So the thing is, I have a large bank of stories.
Yes, you do.
So, and I know I've talked about this in previous episodes, but I feel like there's always a story that you can tell.
Yes.
So, and if anybody's interested, then I can tell the stories. And
but that's
but I also love to hear other people's stories
you
too.
do.
So
Mm-hmm.
I kind of fit right into that. So I think that's kind of a little bit of a difference in our personalities, and that's fine. We'll talk about that a little bit more in our next episode.
Oh, yeah, there's
So
that
we
one coming
don't want to
up.
drop any
No,
too much.
No, step on the toes of our next episode.
Yeah. But that would be one area. I think another area is writing the content for these podcasts.
Okay.
Some of that is a little out of my comfort zone. Putting myself out there.
Yeah.
In this way, I know with this particular episode, I struggled to come up with content for it.
Yes, you
So
did.
I think I threw away the first 3 drafts of it
Yep.
and just completely started over with it because I couldn't get it to a place I was happy with it. So
Yes.
that has really stretched me as a person. And
Because you've always loved writing, right?
I do. I love writing.
Yeah.
Where it pushes me out of my comfort zone is when I have to deal with like a sensitive subject.
Yes.
Because there's all of that emotion within me when I'm
course.
writing. Because when you write, I mean, a big part of that just comes from the heart.
Yeah, you're
right?
pouring your heart out. Mhm.
So for me, that's getting past that. That's out of my comfort zone, is to share so intimately with people. But I know that there is so much value in sharing these things.
Yeah.
And I know that the things that we have to say come from years of experience,
Hard-won
and
experience.
wisdom. Yes. And I truly believe that, somebody else is going to benefit from what we have to say.
And at the end of the day, it's what God has called us to do.
Absolutely.
Right.
We are answering the call in doing this.
The reward of doing what we were created to do is so worth it. So, dear listener, what is God using this episode to call you to today?
Not sure where to start with figuring out what your calling is? Start with prayer.
Mm-hmm.
Then consider your life experiences, your unique circumstances, your gifts, your skills, your personality, and your areas of influence. And then pray some more. And then listen.
Uh-huh.
Listen for that still small voice to reveal his plans and purpose for you. I am confident that God will reveal your calling to you. And then get ready for something truly beautiful to happen when you answer the call.
Thank you for listening today. What are we going to talk about next time?
Well, our next episode is going to be called Love and Marriage.
Oh, okay.
We're coming up on our 22nd wedding anniversary
Yes, we
on
are.
February 23rd. It's going to be about the time this episode is released.
Well, that's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, this one will be a little more kind of lighthearted and fun.
Well, that's good. If you know of someone who would enjoy this podcast, please point them in our direction. Visit us at Beautiful View Podcast on Facebook or Instagram, share our posts, or share the link to the podcast. Also, now you can watch the video of our podcast on YouTube if you prefer that. The link to our YouTube channel is in our show notes.
This is especially fun because we can insert extra things into the videos to give you a glimpse of some of the things we're talking about.
Yeah, pictures,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah, be sure to follow, subscribe to, or leave a review for us on either YouTube or your favorite podcasting platform.
Yes.
These things are completely free to you, but help more people find us.
Thank you to the Hopeful Few for providing the music for our podcast. You can check out more of their music on Spotify or Apple Music. The links are in our show notes.
If you have any questions you would like us to answer or suggestions for things you would like us to talk about in our future episodes, just email us at beautifulviewpod@gmail.com.
And just a reminder, please consider joining the Beautiful View Patreon channel. This helps us keep the episodes coming and cover our costs. This platform really makes a big difference for content creators. It provides a way for you to show your appreciation for content you love to watch or listen to. Memberships are only $5 a month. Again, the link is in our show notes, and it's also on our social media accounts.
We hope you have a great day, and remember to always keep an eye open for opportunities in life to see a beautiful view.
We could climb a mighty mountain, float on down a winding river, travel back in time and face our future too. Oh, I'm not scared of where I'm going, 'cause I know whose hands I'm holding. Oh, I'd go anywhere as long as you're going too. And I'd go anywhere as long as I'm with you. Yeah, I'd go anywhere as long